in a dark room and smoke my e-cigarette and just think about everything horrible that's ever happened in my life.
Someone pour me up a double shot of whiskey. Actually make it a triple shot of whiskey. Scratch that, I actually want a quadruple shot of whiskey. I know you're done pouring, but I changed my mind again. Now I actually want a quintuple shot of whiskey. Come on, please. Please.
Welcome back into The Door Report, episode 288 on a lovely Tuesday evening, October 29th, 2024. I am Will Byrum, joined as always by my hostess-eating co-host, Trevor Hulan, a.k.a. Hack Squat Jim Duggan. Sorry to expose you for eating the hostess.
No, it's all good. I love ding-dongs.
Big
ding-dongs
ding-dong guy. Pause.
Huge ding-dong guy.
Massive pause.
Massive ding-dong guy.
Unpause. Way to get me off track early, but keep eating your ding-dongs, brother.
I already put it all in my mouth, dude.
Just shoving ding-dongs in your mouth. That's what TDR is all about. Just ding-dongs in the mouth. We're also joined by our producer, Phoebe, who has been on one this evening.
Big
She's
goobin'.
been trying to knock off everything we have set up on the table. Phoebe, if you do that, it'll be good content, just like when the table fell over, but I'd be pissed. I really don't want that to happen.
If
So
she broke any of these bobbleheads, the Jay Cutler
do
one
not
especially.
knock gold jersey Jay Cutler off the table, Phoebe.
You'll go back to the shelter if you do that.
But here at the Door Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay for a massive selection of items, including NFL team packs, graded cards, individual cards, and more. So check them out on eBay. You can go to the hyperlink www.ebay.com/str/615collectibles, or you can just go to the eBay search bar and type in 615 collectibles. Shipping is always fast and free. Trevor, in case people listening out there have forgotten, because it has snuck up on us a little bit.
Yeah.
Basketball season is less than a week away.
Yeah, on Monday.
The new era of Vanderbilt basketball underneath Mark Byington begins Monday, November 4th. We have not done a preview episode, so this will be our semi-preview. We'll explain that more in segment 1, how we're going to be discussing basketball. But we will have a more detailed basketball episode coming up in a couple weeks. We will explain that and why we are doing that, and we tried. But at this point, we'd just be guessing alongside everyone else about basketball. So we'll touch on that briefly, but mostly it'll be just me and Trevor's expectations for the season and kind of what we're expecting to see overall from a macro view for Vanderbilt basketball underneath Mark Byington with a completely new roster. Maybe the largest roster turnover. I don't know how we'd check this in the history of college basketball. In one, I don't even know what you could compare it to.
I'm pretty tapped into Vanderbilt basketball, and I couldn't tell you what I think the starting five would be. I don't know.
You have literally, and I say literally because I want to reinforce. You have one returning player on the roster, and it wasn't even a key player.
No,
it was JQ Roberts.
It was a rotational guy.
It's a rotational guy who was probably 7th or 8th in the rotation on a team that went 9-23 last season. So you don't know what to expect, but we're going to discuss basketball a little bit. Of course, we're going to recap Vanderbilt's tight 27-24 loss to the Texas Longhorns on Saturday. Me and Trevor will give our 3 key takeaways. I hope you have prepared those.
I have.
Okay. And we are also going to briefly preview Vanderbilt's very important upcoming matchup against the Auburn Tigers on the road, which you will be in attendance for.
I will be in attendance, and I'm going to go ahead and put this on the record. I know I've said this about a couple games. I think this is Vanderbilt's biggest game so far. Big game of the year.
I will agree this is the most important game for Vanderbilt. We will discuss why that is, and there's a lot to discuss. We're going to try to keep this episode at about an hour. We will see if we're able to do that, but we have a lot to hit on. So let's go ahead and get into episode 288. Before we get into segment 1, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Door Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We just hit 400 subscribers on YouTube.
Oh, did we
by
really?
The way,
Let's
400,
go.
baby.
Let's go.
Yeah. By the way, our content is not built for YouTube.
Yeah.
We are long-form content. There's no algorithm-based content, so we're not built. So 400 subscribers, pretty solid for the boys.
Thank you, guys. For all you guys that
shout out to
comment on the
everybody.
YouTube videos, we see that. We love that stuff.
like and comment on those. Our podcast is also available in audio version on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and a review on iTunes. It's now time for segment 1.
Whoa, not cool, gang.
Welcome back into episode 288 of The Door Report. Trevor, we're going to start off with basketball. This is going to be very quick. We reached out to friend of the pod and VandySports.com writer and podcast co-host Joey Dwyer, who has been able to attend practices. Friend of the pod, we say.
Close personal friend.
Maybe fake friend, as Joey said he was too busy to record this week with TDR. So we tried. Joey, sorry to throw you under the bus, but we're tossing you under it, bud, because we needed you for this basketball
Dude,
preview.
what is it with the Vandy sports guys just thinking
They
they're
hate
better
us.
than us?
They hate us.
Thinking
dude.
that I know I love Billy. I know Billy deep down inside is like those TDR guys, those amateurs. I'm a big Jay Journo over here.
Yeah, we're nothing compared to those guys. But we did want to bring Joey on. So initially, Trevor, I know this is just false promises and whatever. Our initial plan was to release 2 episodes this week.
Yes.
I was going to join an Auburn podcast tomorrow, and Trevor was going to do a 20 to 30-minute episode with Joey previewing basketball season.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not going to happen, so we're going to just toss in a very, 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 very quick basketball season preview before their first game on November 4th. And just to remind everyone out there, that first game for the Vanderbilt Commodores in the Mark Byington era is against Maryland Eastern Shore. Hopefully, by God, hopefully, that's a win for the Vanderbilt Commodores. But I will never take one for granted after what I witnessed inside of Memorial Gym going into last season against Presbyterian.
That was one of the worst Vanderbilt moments I've ever had in my life.
But so just to reiterate what the plan is. So we're going to do our quick preview. We will be doing a more full basketball preview during Vanderbilt's second bye week. So that is in between. Vanderbilt plays on the 9th of November, and they play again on the 23rd of November. After that game on the 9th, which is against South Carolina, we will be recording a full basketball preview. Vanderbilt basketball will have played 2 games at that point. They will have been against Maryland Eastern Shore and Southeastern Missouri State. Then Vanderbilt on the 13th of November plays against Cal. So we will be recording the preview after their first 2 games, but prior to that Cal game. So theoretically, Vanderbilt should be, and me and Trevor's expectations, I don't want to put words in your mouth, should be 2-0 when we preview this roster. And we will see a little bit more with the rotations. We'll actually see this roster live and in action, and we can give you actual insights based on what our expectations were and then what we actually see. Because right now, outside of Jason Edwards being the starting point guard, I don't know jack shit about this roster.
I don't know anything.
I'm going to be completely honest. Vanderbilt has 1 returning player, and it's JQ Roberts. So, Trevor, what are you thinking about basketball season? What's the vibes? How are you feeling?
I have no expectations really for this basketball program because, like we've said, we really don't know anything about them. My personal hope for this basketball team is that, and this is very subjective, I hope they're playing meaningful basketball in the month of February, whether that's on a bubble or whether they're fighting for a better seed position in the SEC tournament or whether they're fighting to get into the NIT. I would just like to see meaningful basketball in the month of February.
Yeah, there are some I've seen some tier lists from accounts, college basketball report accounts and different things that clearly have not done detailed research in the offseason. And I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert on this current Vanderbilt basketball roster because I haven't seen them play together. But I've seen a lot of tiers still ranking Vanderbilt dead last in the SEC in the bad, awful tier of the conference. I personally think there is no chance Vanderbilt is bad this season of basketball. Agree. I also think there is a very little, if not 0% chance that Vanderbilt is really good this year. My prediction and expectation is this Vanderbilt team is going to be very, very, very okay this season. I just am not sure you can build an entire roster through the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Even in basketball. Is this basketball was my sport growing up. I know how much it means to be playing with the same guys and having repertoire with those guys. Edwards knowing where people are going to be set up, knowing tendencies of players. It's hard to build that in one off season.
Yeah.
I know Byington's a great head coach, 31-3 last season with James Madison. I think the team is going to be better. The team is going to be improved. It's going to be a more fun brand of basketball. But this is a lot of new guys trying to sync up, and Vanderbilt is going to be very undersized this season. So I know we're not getting into too much detail because we have 2 football games, one to recap and one to preview. But my expectations of this team is teetering on an NIT berth. And if everything goes, and that's base expectations, is your middle of the pack to slightly below average in the SEC, teetering on an NIT berth. My high expectations are you're teetering as a bubble team.
Yeah.
So I just, this team's not going to go 9-23.
I just want
That's
fun
the
basketball.
base.
I just want fun basketball.
That's the base of what I wanted to hit on. Is I wanted to get out there early. This team's going to be better. They're going to be a better team. That doesn't mean they're going to be a good team, but they're going to be a better team. I actually had the pleasure of playing cornhole with Vanderbilt's new starting point guard here, who I'm Jason Edwards. And my first impression of Jason Edwards was this guy's a dog.
He was so nice too.
Me and Jacob Scholl beat him in cornhole, and he was pissed. I think it was him and Jalen Carey.
It was Jalen Carey, yep.
And Jalen Carey was kind of like, kind of laughing, and Jason Edwards was pissed about it, dude. And I was like, that's my point guard.
Yes.
That's the guy. So my predictions are basically Jason Edwards is going to be a dog, and other than that, this team's going to be better. But also, that's not saying a lot. That's like saying predicting that this football team would be better than they were last year. It's like it's kind of hard to be worse. So that's kind of where I sit. I don't have any insights. I wish I had more insights. All I know is this team's going to be so much more up tempo. Yeah, they're going to be playing transition, fun and gun basketball, and I can't wait for that.
That's all I care to see.
You're going to see some shooters out there. So I'm going to read through the roster just really quickly to remind everyone of the names. These are just going to be in order. I have no idea what order these are actually in. I'm going to go by position. So at forward, you have Jalen Carey, Devin McLaughlin, both transfers in, Kajani Wright transfer in, and then you have JQ Roberts, who's the only returning player. At guard, you have Karis Bilal, a freshman coming in, Graham Carlton. Oh, he's actually returning as a walk-on.
Oh, Graham. Shout out Graham.
Okay, so scholarship players, Vanderbilt only has one returning. MJ Collins, Jason Edwards, Alex Hemingway, AJ Hogard, Grant Hoffman, Miles Keefe. That's a returning player.
That Miles
Another
Keefe
walk-on
is
returning.
also a returning player.
Chris Mannon, Colson Messer, Tyler Nickel, Holman Smith, Tyler Tanner, Jordan Williams. The reason I read off all of those players is to emphasize Vanderbilt has 4 forwards on their roster, 0 centers, and the rest of the roster is guards.
Small ball.
Yeah, Vanderbilt is going to be attempting to play the smallest ball possible, which is having 0 players over 6'9", and only 2 players that are even 6'8" or above, or 3 players that are 6'8" or above. That's going to be a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just predicting that early.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's about the only basketball. We will dig into this deeply in that bye week episode. Just want to keep reiterating, we're not meaning to skimp you guys on basketball coverage. We love basketball, but right now the focus is football.
Which is so weird to say. When was the last time that was we were overlooking basketball because of football?
It's been since before TDR began.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean,
because even the 2022 season that Vanderbilt went 5-7, that was due to a late run in November.
Exactly.
With 2 wins over Kentucky and Florida, and the bowl game was never really realistic.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've never had this conundrum. I'm not going to complain about it. So
it's been over a decade.
This is an incredible problem to have, and I apologize to everybody listening. We're not doing a better job previewing basketball, but we'll have more information after they play their first couple games. Otherwise, we'd be guessing. Joey, middle finger. We love you, Joey.
We love
you, Joey. But let's get to this Texas recap, dude. Vanderbilt, number 25 Vanderbilt, very briefly, at home against the number 5 Texas Longhorns. Vanderbilt loses 27-24. Tight ball game. I will say the game overall did not feel as close as a 27-24 game. There were multiple times, and I think this is a credit This is a credit to Vanderbilt because this means you are a good football team. There are multiple times I looked over at my dad or looked over at Trevor and said, how in the world are we only down 7?
Yeah.
I kept how is this team still in this game? Because Vanderbilt did not play that well.
No.
And I think that is the overarching storyline and narrative of this game is Vanderbilt played the number 5 team in the country 27-24, and Vanderbilt, in my opinion, played their C+ game.
Yeah.
Texas didn't play an A or a B. They also played their C game. But Vanderbilt played their C+ game. Texas probably played a C, C-, and Vanderbilt lost by 3.
Yeah.
And I think that is a credit to how much further Vanderbilt has come this season, is they come out, play a C+, and take the number 5 team down to an onside kick late in the game.
Yeah, and I totally agree. After the game, we discussed it in Section F as we were waiting for everybody to leave. I even said I thought this was like a C-. I did not think they looked good. I didn't think the offense looked crisp. I thought Tim Beck put them in a lot of precarious situations with the early down calling. I will say, though, I thought the defense probably had one of their better games they've had all season. You can make the argument that was the defense's best game all season.
Definitely the best half of football.
Best half, yes.
You've seen
yes,
this defense was in the second half against Texas. Only gave up 6 points.
Yeah,
in
they
the second
locked them
half.
down.
And that was even with Vanderbilt being very aggressive in that game. I want to get this out early because I am going to do key plays, but I really loved how aggressive Clark Lee, Tim Beck were in play calling.
Yeah.
There were multiple times they went for it on 4th down. They recognized that if you're going to win this game, you have to have big, meaningful, momentum swinging plays, and they tried.
Yeah.
And so I have no complaints. Some people were complaining about the play calling, different things. I have no complaints about what I saw. That is a very talented Texas football team.
That's the best front they're going to see all season.
That was the best team that Vanderbilt's played all year. There was no doubt in my mind watching them. That Texas team is very talented. We have key plays coming up, but at first I do want to talk about the tailgate. Incredible time at the tailgate.
Banger
Shout out
tailgate.
to everybody that showed up. We had Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered came by.
Great guy.
Had a good time. We had our shout out to DJ Key. We had a DJ out there set up in lot 2. Shout out to DJ Key. Book DJ Key. Reach out to him on Instagram. He's the man. But he'll be back, I think, for the Tennessee game.
Oh,
even though that's an early kick, we will have a DJ.
We'll get him out there
for
at
that
5
game.
a.m.
We'll have him out there early. The tailgate was a great time. We tapped a keg out in lot 2.
Delicious beer out of the keg.
Thank you once again to Robert Falcone for cooking up some chicken and steak fajitas. Always shout out to Chef Miller. Shout out to everybody that helped out. Incredible time in lot 2. Even though Vanderbilt lost the game by 3, we won in lot 2.
Yes. We did our job in lot 2.
And shout out to Vanderbilt fans as well. The story was already written that stadium was going to be 60% minimum Texas. Vanderbilt fans kept it at 60%.
I thought it was a great show.
Every ticket that it had not already been sold to opposing fans, there was black and gold in that seat. Shout out to the students. Shout out to fans on the home side.
Yeah.
The home side was actually 70% Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
The away side was like 90% Texas, but the home side was 70% Vanderbilt. So good showing from the fans overall.
And like you said, dude, shout out to the students, dude. There were reports they were out there 3 hours before kickoff trying to get into the bank. They stayed the whole time. That place the student section was filled to the brim before kickoff. Shout out to the students, man. Great year from them.
Shout out to the students. We'll get into key plays here. I'm not going to go through them all, but Vanderbilt, of course, started out the game with a pick. Vanderbilt then capitalizes on that in the first quarter by scoring on an incredible run by Diego Pavia. Boy, did that get the juices flowing early. Felt like Bama early.
I shot up a double bird for no reason. Like Texas fans weren't rude, but I just got so excited. For some reason, I shot up a double bird. And then I looked at my dad and I go, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did that. The emotion just got over me. He's like, it's fine, son. Just remember there's kids around.
But after that initial score by Vanderbilt, the rest of the first half was completely dominated by Texas.
Yeah.
Completely dominated by Texas. At the end of the half, with 5:04 left in the second quarter, Texas was leading 21-7. And it looked like Texas was going to basically run away with the game.
Yeah.
That's why this was so impressive by this Vanderbilt team. I'm not saying it was a moral victory. I hate moral victories. But at the same time, it's hard to be disappointed in what you saw.
I agree.
Vanderbilt gets a late kick from Brock Taylor. How far was that 54-yarder.
54-yarder. I believe broke the record
Yep.
for most 50-yarders
Yep.
by a Vanderbilt kicker
In a single season.
In a single season. Shout out to Rocket Launcher.
Vanderbilt goes into half receiving the ball to start the second half up or down 21-10.
Yep.
But you're in the ball game.
Mhm.
That's what we kept saying. It felt like Vanderbilt was down 30.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt was only down 11, getting the ball to start off the second half. Vanderbilt, of course, does not score to start off the second half. Texas goes down, gets a field goal, 24-10 Texas with 8:54 left in the third quarter. Then Vanderbilt goes down and throws a very not impromptu, but very unlikely touchdown pass.
Yeah.
24-17. And then sorry, I'm getting my times in this game confused. But Vanderbilt cuts it to a one-score game, and that's how the third quarter comes to an end. 24-17, Texas leading Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had opportunities. I want to keep hitting there. We talked about it in the last three games that the offense or defense did enough, and then the offense or defense won the game. We talked about that in Bama, is the defense did enough, and the offense won the game.
Yeah.
In the Kentucky game, the offense did enough, and the defense won the game.
Yeah.
In this game, the defense did enough, and the offense just wasn't able to win the game.
Yeah.
That was the story of it, is the defense kept giving the offense chances win one-score ball games, and Vanderbilt was just unable to put a drive together.
Yeah.
Texas defense is very talented. Vanderbilt ended up scoring another late touchdown and then was unable to recover the onside kick. Vanderbilt loses 27-24. I wanted to run through the key plays very quickly, and then we'll get to the box score here. Let me pull it up if I can find it. Quinn Ewers had a hell of a game. There were a couple interceptions, both off tips at the line of scrimmage. Quinn Ewers, 27-37, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The stats don't really do it justice, but Wisner, however you pronounce it, had a hell of a game at running back.
Yeah.
17 carries for 79 yards. He was brutal to bring down. I mean, he all game. Jadon Blue, 10 carries, 47 yards. Texas was without Isaiah Bond, their best receiver. DeAndre Moore, 6 catches, 97 yards. Helm, their tight end, 4 catches, 46 yards. Overall, Vanderbilt struggled against Texas's offense. Outside of the second half, their passing attack specifically. Vanderbilt on offense did not win the turnover battle, which ultimately was probably the difference in the game.
First time in this year.
Diego Pavia went out for a second with an injury, but was 16 of 29 for 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Overall, not Pavia's best game. Not a horrible game, but not his best game. Pavia went out with an injury for a second. Nate Johnson stepped in and played pretty well. Pretty well. Completed a pass downfield, 1 of 2 for 12 yards for Nate Johnson.
On third down.
Yep. Diego Pavia led the team in rushing, 16 carries, 67 yards, and a touchdown. Cedric Alexander really could never get any room the entire game. 10 carries, 32 yards. Nate Johnson, 1 carry, 11 yards. AJ Newberry not really involved in the running game, 2 carries for 5 yards. Going to the passing game, receiving. Texas obviously emphasized locking down Stowers.
Yeah.
That was number 1. Eli Stowers, second on the team in receiving, 3 catches, 33 yards, and a touchdown. Junior Sherrill, 5 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Quincy Skinner Jr., 3 catches, 21 yards. Cedric Alexander, 4 catches, 21 yards. Cole Spence, 1 catch, 12 yards. And Loic Fungi, 1 catch for 6 yards. Getting to the defense, Brian Longwell led the team in total tackles with 11. CJ Taylor, 8 total tackles. Brandon Fontenot with 8 as well as 1.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. DeRicky Wright and Miles Capers with 7 total tackles each, and no one else with over 4 total tackles. Overall, this is a tough game. I talked about it with you before we started recording. I said, this is actually an episode I don't want to record.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm so angry at the team. It's because there's not a lot of things to say.
Yeah.
There's just what we saw on the field. I can say it 1,000 different ways, but there's nothing to be disappointed about. The team came out, played their butts off. Vanderbilt looked like, I don't want to hit on my keys, but Vanderbilt looked like the number 25 team in the country playing the number 5 team in the country.
Yeah.
You saw across the country teams ranked in the 20s playing top-ranked teams this last weekend, and they got their asses kicked.
Mizzou, Alabama.
Mizzou got their freaking butt kicked. Illinois got their butt kicked. Navy got their brains beat in by Notre Dame. Vanderbilt got dropped from number 25 to number 26 for playing the number 5 team in the country down to the wire.
Yeah.
And compared to what other teams did, it's hard to be upset at what you saw.
Exactly. Yeah. And I tweeted this after the game, and a lot of people said, well, that's not really a moral victory. But I always promised myself I would never be a moral victory guy. But I was in a weird headspace leaving the bank that night because typically after a loss, I'm like pretty pissed mad. Like I'm upset. Leaving that game, I obviously wasn't happy because we lost, but I was also not upset either. I was in a weird headspace. I'm like, I'm not happy, but I'm not angry either. In fact, like more than anything, I think I'm a little bit proud of how this team performed against the number 5 team in the nation.
Yeah, we're gonna hit on takeaways, and so let's go ahead and get to our takeaways.
Yeah.
I do want to add in one phrase just for everybody out there. Reminder: keep your shoulders square.
Oh,
Keep your shoulders square. A game-changing, momentum-changing call. I think it is. I wanted to hit on this.
I've never heard that call in my life.
Everybody that's listening knows what I'm talking about. But there was a 4th down conversion that Vanderbilt had on the same play they ran against Kentucky, kind of a faking confusion. Somebody comes in and gets under center, and they actually handed it off this time around. But last game against Kentucky, they ran a quarterback sneak. But the referees threw an illegal formation, not because Vanderbilt had too many men in the backfield or not enough men on the line of scrimmage. It was because the receiver did not have his shoulders square to the line of scrimmage. By the rule book, the right call. It was on the opposite side of the field from where Vanderbilt actually ran the play. It had no bearing on the outcome of the play whatsoever. By the rule book, it was the correct call. My issue, and it seems to be Clark Lee's issue with the call as well, it is clearly referees looking to throw a flag.
Yeah.
And that was what Clark Lee hit on. The other side of this is what made me ill is watching football after that game, watching how often that is the case.
Yeah.
In modern, that is almost the entirety of, and they're a good team. It's a great offensive design by Heupel. This isn't a shit on the Vols moment. It's every play of the Tennessee offense. They have a receiver not square to the line of scrimmage, looking at the player snapping the ball and getting signals.
Yeah. When
When you watch college football, you could call that call 15 to 20 times a game, every game. And for some reason they called it. I'm not so furious because it was the right call by the technicality of the rule book, but it's similar to holding. You could call holding on every play if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Pretty much. You could call some form of slightly improper lineup on every play. But on that one, of course, because it was some form of disguise or a clever play call, they had to call something. They had to call something. And you will not hear about it at the end of the game because at the end of the game, Texas, because of how they play, is going to have more penalties in the box score. But none were more key than that specific penalty at that moment in the game. You felt the wind go out of the sails of Vanderbilt at that point.
And I tweeted that flag completely drained Vanderbilt of any momentum. That flag, you could make the argument, and I believe this to be the case, changed the course of the game.
100%.
And it's just like Clark Lee said, it's frustrating because officials have this direct impact on the game, and there's no accountability within the SEC. He's going to submit a complaint to the SEC office, and they're going to be like, yeah, so sorry, we messed up, but like, nothing will happen. We're not going to punish these guys. It's just like, hey, here's your sorry letter.
Well, the weird part of this one is there's nothing to punish. It wasn't the wrong call.
Yeah, that is true.
That's the issue. That's a lot of the issue with is be consistent.
Yeah.
It's why I didn't hate how the Ball State game referees officiated, is because there were a lot of defensive holdings and pass interferences and unnecessary roughness that could have been called. They just didn't call it.
Yeah.
Across the board, both sides, they just did not call defensive holding. If you're going to do it like that, fine. But if you're going to be ticky-tack, be ticky-tack the whole game.
Yeah.
And that was the only time they called a call like that. I don't understand. Whatever. We got to move on.
Never heard that call in my life.
3 key takeaways, Trevor. I'll go ahead and start with mine because I've already basically said it. My key takeaway number 1 is damn proud of this team. It's not a moral victory. It was a statement. And I think I stole that from a former player who tweeted something similar to that. I can't remember who it was. This wasn't a moral victory. The reason that I'm positive after this game is not because they played them close. It was because Vanderbilt went out there, turned the ball over 3 times, did not play their best game, and played the number 5 team in the country down to the wire.
Yeah.
This was a statement that this Vanderbilt team is not just ranked number 25. This Vanderbilt team is about the 20 to 25th best team in the country, number 20 to number 30. And this team coming off a 2-10 season, where I could legitimately make an argument as a person that watched every single game. This Vanderbilt team was a bottom 15 team across every conference last season. And you go from that to being a top 30 team inarguably, which I think they just proved against Texas. They have a lot of proving to do in the next 2 games, which we're going to hit on. But this was step 1. They proved that Alabama game was absolutely not a fluke.
Yeah.
They proved it when they beat Kentucky on the road. They proved it when they beat Ball State. And then they proved it by playing Texas down to the wire. Vanderbilt is for real.
Yeah.
This is a for real improved team. It is not fluky. This team is better. Clarkley and Barton Simmons have them moving in the right direction. And I give the caveat of all this can change if they lose the last 4 games of the season.
Yeah.
But as of right now, what I saw in that Texas game, this team's going to win one of those last 4 games.
Yeah. That's my key takeaway, number 1. I won't add much more to it other than not only from a fan's aspect, do you see that whenever you're watching the game? Shout out to Vanderbilt for the content that they're producing, the behind-the-scenes stuff that we haven't had since the Franklin era. A clip they tweeted yesterday after the loss. Clark Lee said, "Hey, I'm proud of you guys. There's no other group of guys I'd rather be with. But, hey, at the end of the day, this wasn't good enough. Close is not good enough." And, like, it sucks. You want them to win. But, like, hearing him say that and hearing the locker room be like, yup. You're like, okay, maybe it actually is changing. You know what I mean? Like, you always want to believe that it's changing. You're like, man, maybe like it's actually for real this time.
We will learn if things have actually changed over the next 2 weeks.
Yes, I agree.
And I don't want to hit on the Auburn preview because there's plenty of time to do that after the TDR cocktail break. But this Auburn game is the biggest game of the season. We talked about it in the intro.
I totally agree.
This is a must-win, underline must on this. Getting to my key takeaway number 2, this isn't really a key takeaway. This doesn't really even have any long-term impact, but we talked about it. Vanderbilt lost time of possession and lost the turnover battle. That's the difference.
Yeah.
You're not going to win games against superiorly talented opponents if you lose time of possession and you lose the turnover battle. So my key takeaway, there's not really anything you could scheme. It's just if Vanderbilt right now with this talent they have, it is improved, but those are 2 things they have to win. If they're going to win these games, these last 4 games, to win any of them, they're going to have to win both time of possession and the turnover battle.
Absolutely.
So that's something you have to scheme in a much broader way, and it's not a simple fix of like, you have to be giving A.J. Newberry the ball more. It's not simple, but just a reminder, Vanderbilt had 3 turnovers, Texas had 2, Texas 1 time of possession. That's a recipe to lose, and Vanderbilt lost. You have 1 less turnover. Who knows? Maybe Vanderbilt wins that ball game. So that's more of an observation than a takeaway, but it is just a fact.
Yeah. My takeaway for the second one is I think you're really starting to see an emergence of Junior Sherrill. In the Texas preview, I said they're going to lock up Eli Stowers. Who's going to be able to step up? And I said I think it would have to be Junior Sherrill. Obviously, had an amazing touchdown catch, great concentration by him, but also a lot of other timely, big time catches within this game. Whether it was on 2nd or 3rd down, getting open, making a play. I thought he was great, and I think you're really starting to see an emergence of Junior Sherrill becoming a real star on this offense. That's something you definitely need out of that wide receiver room because Eli Stowers is doing his job. Seems like Junior Sherrill stepping up and taking command.
I'm glad you brought up a positive about the offense because I don't have anything positive.
That's about
left.
my only positive.
I gave my main positive in number 1, which is everything I say after this. My feeling overall about this game is positive.
Yeah.
So my last 2 are negative, but so my key takeaway number 3, the defense still has major issues. Even though they played a good second half, the defense still has major issues. There was 1 point where Quinn Ewers completed 17 straight passes. This defense has a huge, I want to reemphasize because it's getting overlooked because they did hold Texas to 6 points in the second half. It has been a problem all season. It is why they lost to Georgia State. It is why they had a close game against Ball State. It's why they didn't beat Missouri. This team cannot make quarterbacks uncomfortable. Every quarterback they face looks like they are facing an FCS defensive line. They have no concern about pressure. And you won't see that in the sack numbers. Vanderbilt's relatively middle of the pack in sack numbers. But snap in, snap out. Quarterbacks are very comfortable. And eventually it seems like Vanderbilt's able to adjust and find some places to get pressure. And Rinaldi has sacks on this season. And they're able to get some pressure. But overall, 17 straight completed passes. That's why Texas won the time of possession.
Yeah.
That's why Texas won the game, is it took Vanderbilt too long to adapt, and they could not make Quinn Ewers uncomfortable consistently. And that's the problem. So to win one of these last 4 games, which Vanderbilt needs to do to make this season a success, because it's not a success yet. If they go 5-7, it's not a success.
Yeah, I agree.
I just want to keep saying that. They have to make opposing quarterbacks uncomfortable. And so far, I've not seen a single thing that makes me think they're going to be able to do that. So we're going to see the defense and the secondary continue to struggle. And I say the secondary in quotes because it's not really the secondary.
Yeah.
It's these quick dump offs. If you don't get pressure on the quarterback and force him into making quick decisions, it's going to make your secondary look bad.
Yeah.
And that's what is currently happening. So I don't know if the answer is really send more pressure, because they've done a decent job preventing big plays. It's just the guys up front have to get pressure on the quarterback. It's as simple as I can make it. It's not an easy fix. But once again, Quinn Ewers set back there. He did throw the 2 picks. Great job getting your hands up. But overall, there were a few sacks. Overall, Quinn Ewers was way too comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's why Vanderbilt ultimately lost the game. So you've got to find ways to get pressure with your front 3 or 4.
I'm right there with you. My third takeaway is I thought Diego Pavia probably had his worst game of the season. I think you could legitimately make the argument, even with the Georgia State game. I think this is probably Diego Pavia's worst game of the year. I'll put a spin on it. This was his worst game of the year, but he still kept Vanderbilt in it. So I think that's a testament to how good of a quarterback Diego Pavia is. But it seemed like he was pressing a lot this game. Does that make sense? But I get it. If stuff's not working on 1st and 2nd down, and you're getting in 3rd and long, 3rd and 7, 3rd, 8, 9, 10, and you're Diego Pavia, your mentality is sort of like, I got to be Superman here. So if that is how he's thinking, I get it. And I understand it because we've seen him be Superman. Like, he can make those plays. So I don't hate it at all. He kept Vanderbilt in the game. He willed them back, but thought he probably had his worst game of the year.
I will say maybe he had his worst game. This was also by far the best defense Vanderbilt has faced all season.
Yes.
So
yes,
I do still think Ball State was his worst game we've seen him play, because he just missed blatantly open guys a couple times. But I don't think he's played anything below a C+ the entire season. I still would give his performance over a C+ in that Texas game.
Yeah, I probably would too.
I mean, once again, there were so many times when it looked like Texas had an easy sack or a stop, and Pavia was the only reason it wasn't.
That offensive line got ate up.
But Texas's defense,
they have a great defensive front. Yeah,
I know the schedule was lesser, but prior to the Vanderbilt game, Texas's defense was giving up 9.7 points per game. Vanderbilt put up 24. I mean, so Texas is very talented, but I that was not Pavia's greatest performance by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that's more us giving credit to how good we believe Diego Pavia is and what we have seen, more than a criticism of him. So that's about it for the Texas game. Vanderbilt loses 27-24, but once again covers the spread as an underdog. Vanderbilt, as a reminder, was a 19.5-point underdog at kickoff against Texas. Opened up as 21.5. I think it got down to 18.5 and ended up around 19 at kick. So Vanderbilt, once again, undervalued by Vegas. Anything else you want to add on this Texas game before we go to the TDR cocktail break?
I don't believe so.
All righty. Everybody out there, grab yourself a cold one, and we will be right back. Welcome back from the TDR cocktail break, and welcome back into episode 288 of the Door Report. Me and Trevor still have the Vanderbilt-Auburn preview to get to. Vanderbilt takes on Auburn in an attempt to get bowl eligible for the second time this season. Vanderbilt currently sitting at 5-3, while Auburn is sitting at 3-5. Coming off, however, a big win over the Kentucky Wildcats last weekend, giving Auburn a little bit of confidence. This game is scheduled to kick off at 11:45 a.m. on SEC Network. What a prime time slot for Vanderbilt Auburn. Understandably, there is very, very little national intrigue around this game. Not an exciting matchup in general. I'm going to go ahead and say it, and I want to get it out early. The Vegas line.
Yeah.
I told Trevor that Vanderbilt would be an underdog in this Vanderbilt-Auburn game, even though me and him we both agreed that Vanderbilt shouldn't be an underdog. I did not expect Vanderbilt to open as a 5.5-point underdog against Auburn on the road, and the line has now expanded to 6.5 to 7 points across most sports books. So Vanderbilt, once again, an underdog in SEC play or in play in general against a team that I don't understand the line.
Yeah.
That's saying that on a neutral site, Vanderbilt would be 3.5-point underdogs against Auburn.
That's just so crazy.
I don't understand that.
That's and I asked you because I'm not a big gambling guy. I'm just like, I want somebody to explain this to me. Like, I don't even understand how. Even though it's a road game, I don't understand Vanderbilt being an underdog against this Auburn team, even in the Plains. I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Fully, as far as Vegas is concerned, Vanderbilt's always going to be between a rock and a hard place because you're not going to have a lot of large fan base support. So Vegas's goal, as I've stated 10,000 times, is to get 50% of the money on both sides because they make money off the VIG. And I don't think most people fully grasp that. Vegas is not predicting the game. The money is predicting the game. They have their algorithm that sets the initial line, but the people and sharp bettors are the ones setting the line with their money going 50% on either side. That's why you see line swings. Now, occasionally Vegas is good with having money on one side or the other, and that's very specific. But this doesn't make any sense because Vanderbilt keeps covering. That's the part I don't understand. Is it would be one thing if me and Trevor are fans and we're seeing through gold-colored glasses, but Vanderbilt as an underdog this season is undefeated against the spread. Vanderbilt has lost 3 games by a combined 10 points this season, 2 of which were against teams in the top 10. How in the world is Vanderbilt a 5.5 to 7 point underdog against an Auburn team who is not good? I'm not saying Vanderbilt's going. I will in my predictions, but I'm not saying Vanderbilt's going to win. I'm not saying I see no understanding, but I'm just saying logically. Look at that is too many points. And if I was an objective gambler, just like the Kentucky game, I think the only thing preventing me from putting an irresponsible amount of money on the money line is the fact that I am a Vanderbilt fan and I must be missing something. It's what I felt going into the Kentucky game. Kentucky is not 14 points better than Vanderbilt. Auburn is not 6.5, 7 points better than Vanderbilt. They're just not. That doesn't mean that Auburn can't go out and beat Vanderbilt by 14. That can certainly happen. But if you played 100 times, the average outcome is not Auburn beating Vanderbilt by 7. It's just not.
I agree.
But if you look at what happened last season, then hell, maybe Vegas isn't that wrong. Last season, Vanderbilt fans will remember probably the most disappointing performance of the season. Auburn was not good last year either. Vanderbilt, of course, was awful last season. But Vanderbilt came out and played terrible against Auburn and lost 31-15. Jaquez Hunter, or is that the correct name? Jarquez. Ran for, I think, like 180 plus yards.
2 touchdowns.
Wild. Because I don't have the stats written down. But ran wild against Vanderbilt. And last week against Kentucky, he did even more damage. That is why Auburn beat Kentucky 24-10 last week. If I can bring up the box score, I don't want to misquote it because it sounds insane. Jarquez Hunter had 23 carries for 278 yards and 2 touchdowns. To add some context, Peyton Thorne, Auburn starting quarterback, 20 of 26 for 172 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick.
Yeah.
Jarquez Hunter won them that game.
Yeah.
He won them the game last year against Vanderbilt as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one to hit on my keys early, but stop Jarquez Hunter.
I mean, I think that's the most obvious key we're going to have all season is stop Jarquez Hunter.
Yeah, that's very easily said, much tougher to do. I do want to remind people, most people listening will have heard some quotes. The head coach for the Auburn Tigers is known good guy, Hugh Freeze.
Yes.
Known great guy.
Yeah,
very
that's
morally strong guy.
Good Christian man,
just
Hugh Freeze.
Just a good guy. All right. Just you're not going to find a better guy than Hugh Freeze. Just a guy you're like, you look over and you're like, I trust that man.
Just a good old Christian Southern boy, Hugh Freeze.
In reality, maybe the most piece of fucking shit Christian television salesman preacher. Fuck Hugh Freeze. That guy is every single thing that is wrong with college athletics and has been wrong with college athletics for the last 40 plus years. Hugh Freeze encompasses all of it.
Yeah.
Just faking being a strong Christian man to get recruits into his program.
Exactly.
And behind the scenes being the biggest two-faced piece of shit you've ever met. That's the only thing I take pride in my life. I'm not necessarily the good guy. I think most people, I'm good in some situations. I'm a nice guy. But I'm at least who I am. If you meet me in person, I promise you'd talk to me for 5 minutes and say, that's exactly who I thought he was. Trevor, the same way. Hugh Freeze, the opposite. I don't know him personally, but the claim to being a strong Christian.
Yeah.
And we won't get into the legality and legal charges.
I know a couple people who know him personally, and they've also attested to, that is not him.
Everything we love about Clark Lee, where he is who he is, and some of that we've criticized, is he's unable to fake being a different person and get the juices up, and there's criticism of that. But Clark Lee is who he is.
Yeah.
I would be thoroughly shocked if I found out Clark Lee was soliciting prostitutes.
Oh, it would be the most
podcast.
It would be the most insane thing ever.
Because I would legitimately say I've lost the ability to judge human beings' character at any level.
Yeah.
So Clark Lee, good guy versus bad guy, Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
I wanted to get that out there. Anyone around the nation should be rooting for the good guys.
Yeah.
And that's the Vanderbilt Commodores.
This truly is 1145 SEC Network. This is truly good versus evil. This is good Vanderbilt versus evil Auburn.
Exactly.
It's right in front of your face.
According to Hugh Freeze, and I hope all the players have heard this, with Vanderbilt's lesser roster as well. Their lesser roster. And that's where you really see good coaching is when you have a lesser roster.
Yeah.
Like the Vanderbilt roster. So all the Vanderbilt players, just so you know, me and Trevor, you guys are the lesser roster. So you guys, you're doing your best. You're trying so hard.
Yep.
You're trying so hard.
You're just a bunch of group of five guys.
Yeah, you're just a bunch of nothings.
You're just a bunch
you
of
hear that
G5
Diego,
guys.
you hear that Eli, you hear that CJ, you hear that Langston, you hear that.
These guys would
Demarion
never
Thomas.
start at Auburn.
Just a bunch of nothing. Sidner, you hear that? Bunch of nothing. Colby Taylor, I hope you heard it.
Brandon
you're nothing,
Fontenette.
dude. You're a lesser. You're
Brandon
lesser.
Fontenette would be a rotational guy at Auburn.
Dude, that is more disrespectful.
So disrespectful.
That truly is more disrespectful than if somebody comes out and specifically starts naming players and being like, Colby Taylor sucks at guarding in man. CJ Taylor scared of hits. It's like, at least then you're talking shit, respectfully. There is the perfect explanation of Hugh Freeze, which is shrouded in basically giving a compliment. He's also shitting on the roster.
The most southern backhand insult of all time. Just as two dudes who've lived in the South, grown up in the South, that is as southern a backhanded insult as you could give.
The perfect example of what we have talked about, the subtle disrespect of low expectations, where me and Trevor, we will be critical, but we're never going to start with low expectations.
Yeah.
We expect Vanderbilt rosters to perform like SEC rosters. Hugh Freeze clearly thinks Vanderbilt's roster is lesser. So let's see. We'll see Saturday, as CJ Taylor said. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see after the game.
We'll let the pads do the talking.
We'll let the pads do the talking. So let's get to our 3 keys to the game. I will go ahead and get mine out of the way.
I think
we'll go ahead and get my number
3
1.
keys.
So my number one key. It's not going to be Jarquez Hunter. That will be here coming up in a sec.
Okay.
But my number 1 key is an interesting stat that I pulled. My number one key in all capital letters is bend, don't break. On defense, it is what Vanderbilt has done a pretty solid job of all season as a defense. But the reason I say that, Auburn has not made a field goal of 40 or more yards all season. Their kicker,
What a stat pull.
Auburn's kicker, is 5 of 10 overall this season kicking the football.
Great stat pull. I did not know that.
Bend, do not break, because Auburn's kicking game is not solid. Auburn's kicker, Towns McGo, I think that's how you pronounce it. I have no idea. 3 of 4 on field goals, 20 to 29 yards. 2 of 3 on field goals, 30 to 39. Has attempted 0 field goals from 40 to 49. His backup, Alex McPherson, has attempted 1 from 40 to 49. He's 0 for 1. And then their starting kicker, McGo, is 0 for 3 on 50-plus yarders. Their longest field goal of the season is 32 yards.
Wow.
So bend, don't break, and make Auburn's kickers hit kicks. That's my key number one, on top of not giving up touchdowns, obviously, because of the points. Auburn's kicking game is weak. So that's my key number one.
Yeah. This is going to be the most, of course, those are going to be the keys to the game whenever it comes to my aspect. Win time possession. The most obvious, even if it wasn't for this specific Vanderbilt team, winning time possession is one of the most universal principles in all of football for as long as football has been played. Whoever wins time possession is going to have a better chance of winning the ball game. That is ever so true for every football team. It is ever so true for this Vanderbilt football team. If they win the time of possession battle, they are going to win this game. Point blank, period. My key number one. The ever so cliche win the time possession.
Well, thanks for stealing my key number two.
I'm telling you, I think we have the same keys.
Also, I talked about it in the Texas game. Vanderbilt lost time of possession, lost the turnover battle. My key number two, easily said, tougher to do. Win time of possession, win the turnover battle.
Yeah.
Until that fails me, that's going to keep being my key to the game. It is very tough to do. I'm not saying I'm giving a roadmap to doing it, but you have to do it. And specifically, this Auburn team has found an offensive identity in running the football. So if Vanderbilt is able to win time of possession, it means that they've contained Auburn's running game.
Yeah.
So win time of possession and win the turnover battle.
Yeah.
That's my key number two.
My key number two, I'm going to go a little bit off script. I think you got to get Eli Stowers involved early. I think you got to get Eli Stowers involved really early. I think Auburn has really good corners. I don't think that their nickel or their linebackers or their safety have the ability to cover Eli Stowers the way that Texas did. Even if they wanted to attempt to bracket him, I don't think they have those guys that have the ability to limit him. So I need to see Eli Stowers get going. I need to see him get involved in the offense. I think he's going to be a real game. I think Eli Stowers is going to be a real game changer. He's maybe been the best tight end of the SEC all year long. So, of course, he's a game changer. But get him involved, get him going. If he gets going, this offense is going to have a really fun day.
I'm glad you had a key on the Vanderbilt side on a specific player, because I don't. My key number three, you all know what it's going to be. Contain Jarquez Hunter.
Yeah.
I read off his Kentucky stats. That's why Auburn beat Kentucky, was what he did. But his season stats might be even more impressive. 120 carries, 863 yards, and 5 touchdowns. For those of you that are mathematically challenged, that is 7.2 yards per carry. Vanderbilt has to keep him underneath 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
If Vanderbilt is able to keep him underneath 5 yards a carry, that's not great if he averages like 4.8, but Vanderbilt will win the game. So contain Jarquez Hunter. Don't allow him to pick up chunks of 10, 15, 20 at a time. You have to keep the defense off the field. You have to stop this Auburn offense, and that all starts and all begins with stopping Hunter.
Yeah.
So that's, once again, very easy to say, very difficult to do. He is very talented, and I hope Langston Patterson is healthy and able to play.
Yeah. Well, I had the exact same key number three, but we're just going to add a little bit more context. I think this is going to be the game to where Clark Lee is going to have to change his defensive philosophy. Clark Lee is going to have to load the box, and he is going to have to be more aggressive and not drop back into coverage as much. You cannot just bring 4 guys and drop 7. Not in this game. That'll kill you. You're going to have to load the box. You're going to have to bring 5 or 6 guys every single play. Make Peyton Thorne beat you. If you can limit, like you said, if you can limit Hunter and make Thorne beat you, I really, really like Vanderbilt's odds.
I do as well. If you make Peyton Thorne beat you, he's going to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And he's going to make a couple bad decisions. He's not a terrible quarterback. He's not awful. He's not good. I would say in the SEC, he's probably the 12th to 14th best quarterback. I don't know.
You can make the argument he is the worst quarterback.
You could
in the
make
SEC.
that argument. You could definitely make that argument, but he's going to look like Mahomes against Vanderbilt. So let's go. We've got our 3 keys. Let's go ahead and get to our predictions. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
And I'll be brutally honest. I will be down in the Plains. I will be in Auburn. I will be bringing the TDR fight to the Tigers. I'm trying to fight back the SOV mentality, if I'm being totally honest with everybody, because this game scares the hell out of me because I look at it, and the reason it scares the hell out of me is because it's winnable. That doesn't make sense, but it's winnable. And if they do this, they are bowl eligible. So there's a lot riding on this game, and it scares the hell out of me. But I'm going to fight that urge. I'm going to fight that fearfulness, and I'm going to trust in Clark Lee that this is not the SOV. This is not the same old Vandy that he inherited that was here for a couple of years. I'm going to trust that this is a new Vanderbilt. I'm going to take the Doors 26-17. Doors get the win. We go bowling.
Doors get bowl eligible, according to Trevor's prediction, 26-17. Pretty similar to what I'm fighting in my prediction. This feels like a game Vanderbilt should win. Everything I've watched with Vanderbilt, everything I've watched with Auburn, I think Vanderbilt's better than Auburn. That's why it scares me.
Yeah.
We talked about it after the Ball State game. Vanderbilt seems to play to their competition week in, week out, and the games have been tight regardless of who the opponent is outside of Alcorn State. I think this will once again be a tight ball game, but I think Clark Lee is able to buck the SOV once again. Very, very similar to your final score. I think Vanderbilt wins this one 27-20.
Okay.
I've been pretty on.
Your scores have been
recently.
On.
So I'm going 27-20 Vanderbilt. I think possessions are at a premium. I think Jarquez Hunter does pick up a lot of yardage against Vanderbilt, but overall, what Vanderbilt struggles consistently against is elite passing. Or not even elite, just teams that primarily run proficient passing offenses. That's not what Auburn has. So it gives me a boost of confidence, but this is a must-win for Vanderbilt because we have been lumping in Auburn and South Carolina all season. South Carolina is a much better team than Auburn. Even though it is at home, Vanderbilt needs to win this Auburn game. This is a must-win. Trevor's got it at 26-17 Doors. I have it at 27-20 Doors. The Auburn fans are extremely confident that they're going to come in and beat Vanderbilt. So they seem to think that this is basically Navy. There's enough on film. They have Vanderbilt figured out. We'll see on Saturday.
Yeah.
I will not be in attendance for the game. I will be in a wedding.
Yeah.
So I would have gone and attended the game alongside Trevor, brought the energy to Jordan Hare. Unfortunately, I will be in a wedding wearing a tux, so I will still be watching the game on my phone. The wedding's not till later in the day, so I'll be able to see most of it since it's an 11:45 kick, but this is the biggest game of the year for the Vanderbilt Commodores. Time to get bowl eligible. I'm nervous as hell.
So nervous.
I'm nervous as hell, but me and Trevor are both predicting wins. Anything else you want to add here before we close it out?
Let's go bowling.
Let's go bowling, baby. For myself, Will Byrum, and my co-host, Trevor Hulan, this has been episode 288 of The Door Report, powered by 615 Collectibles.